80% of B2B tech buyers buy based on brand, yet most marketers are still fixated on bottom of funnel activity.
Welcome to the next episode of Generation Marketing. Once again, I'm joined by Gabe, and we're going to drill down on something we picked up on the first episode, which is all around brand.
Yeah, we want to talk about that particular stat that 80% of B2B tech buyers have their vendor shortlist before they even get to the buying cycle. We want to delve a bit deeper into that today.
I think when you said that on the first episode, we both looked at each other and went, that's brand.
Yeah.
And I think brand has become this almost forgotten thing in B2B marketing. We're so eager to focus on digital marketing and generating leads and direct attribution and all the things we talked about before that we actually forget to take a step back and say, hey, we've got to build a brand first.
Yeah, and I think there's so many reasons for that, and we'll probably try and get through all of them today. But some of the key ones, I think direct attribution really has killed the whole idea of brand building. I think you touched on it when you spoke to Mary in the second episode, but this ability to delve into every single tactic has given us this focus on tactics rather than overarching strategy. So we look at tactical execution, and we don't look at what is our overarching brand strategy. What do we want to be associated with? What do we want to be remembered for? It doesn't even cross marketers' minds anymore.
Yeah, and it's obvious, really, isn't it? If people know you, and then you say, you're interested in this, they'll engage with you. But if you're completely unknown, it's like starting a shop on the high street. Nobody knows about you, and you expect everyone to walk in. It doesn't happen like that. So building the brand, building that value, as you just said, is really, really key. So what lessons can we learn from, say, the world of B2C, the consumer marketing, where brand has and always is sort of a real key focus of those organizations?
I think I've got two really good examples that are directly on paid media and an over focus on paid media channels for unknown audiences, trying to engage unknown audiences and convert them. And I think that's what all digital marketing aims to do, is grab someone and at that moment, get them somewhere, get them to do something. How often does that actually happen? And that's why we're seeing this drop off. There were two really great case studies. One of them, Adidas, famously, accidentally, I don't know how you accidentally do this, turned off all their paid search campaigning. Right. So they had absolutely no paid search campaigning across Google or Microsoft going out at all. Nothing. They'd gone from spending millions and then they accidentally stopped it. Again, I don't know how they managed it, but they did. They realised 2 months after and nothing had changed. So absolutely no impact on results. And I think the key bit there is when people go to find whatever they're buying, right? Running trainers, they search up running trainers from an SEO perspective, an organic search perspective. Adidas are still there. They might not be number one because they're not paying for that paid search slot, right? But they're going to be on the top page, and people will seek out the brands they know.
Yep.
Because they want to go for a brand they trust. It's the same, I think Uber recently, really great example. Uber had been spending $35 million a year just on Meta ads. So just on that one channel, well, multiple, Facebook, Instagram, the Meta ads network. They turned it off and actually saw their results increase. They didn't see any decrease, a measurable decrease in results.
Wow.
So there's this ability as a brand, if you're known, it will carry you. People seek out the brands they know. And a point I want to make today is it's even more important in B2B than it is in B2C. Because when you're buying as a consumer, you're buying for yourself. You are in charge. You hold the risk yourself. You hold the buying power. You hold the repercussions. In B2B, your job is on the line. If it goes wrong, if you buy something or say that we should buy something and it goes wrong, you might lose your job, you might lose your livelihood on that one decision. So, of course, you want to opt for the brand you know and trust.
Yeah, and I suppose a good example of that is, do you go out there? Do you go with an unknown, or do you go for something that's safe? And it sounds sad, but a lot of B2B buyers go for the safe option. And the safe option comes from trust, which comes from brand. Right?
Yeah. And if you think, let's like a quick thought experiment. If I came to you, right, and I said, we need marketing automation software, we need a platform in place. And I said, right, I've done some research, 2 options. We've got HubSpot or we've got Chair and Co marketing automation, right? You're going to go,
which one's the cheapest?
Yeah. After you said which, after we've had a discussion about what the budgets are and what's actually cheap and what's more cost effective, you're going to say, well, already before you even said anything, in your head, you're going, well, HubSpot's pretty well known, should be a safe bet, right? But in many cases, I wouldn't even bring that to the table. The other one, what did I say? Chair and Co marketing automation. It's only because there's a chair over there. Because if I bring that to the table, we start using it and then suddenly we get, I don't know, a data breach in a month's time and all our records disappear. We've accidentally leaked a bunch of customer information. I'd like to put the hope that I, escape it, but I might be on the line. My job might be on the line there, right? It's a risk that no one wants to take in business, putting their name, their job on the line for a decision that's like, well, no, I'll just opt for the easy default one because no one's going to question me. It's not going to cause any problems. So
if brand is so important, and we're saying that, and we can see it, and it's quite obvious when you talk through it, why aren't people doing it? Why? Because we get organizations come to us, and they tend to talk in terms of sales activation campaigns all the time. I've got this new product, I want to launch it. I've got this new proposition. You often get we've got this special offer on. We're going to take 50% off your first 6 months of subscriptions and push that out. It's all that sharp end of the sales engagement, nothing of going on the brand side. So why is that? What's changed the mindset?
You're right. Every client that comes to us, they basically just give us a lead target. That's the first thing that when we ask, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Oh, what, 20 leads a month? 60 leads a week? Well, okay, no, what are you actually trying to achieve? And you break it down, you get to revenue. And so the whole focus has to be on this attributable thing. Marketing isn't allowed anymore to experiment and do things that might make the brand more famous. And I think this over obsession with direct attribution has hurt that. But also there is this misconception that brand building is a long-term investment that doesn't pay off, right? There is this sort of this view that, well, if you start building a brand, well, it's going to take, a couple of years of investment before you even see any returns. We've got to do lead gen. But actually, you do lead gen, you're focusing on this very small amount of the market. You're trying to push people when they're not even ready. What is the success rate of the lead gen, right?
Yeah.
In terms of revenue, in terms of your actual objective, it might be better off doing brand building and getting results from, month 3 because you've already built up some trust with some people early on. You might happen to hit the 5% of the market who are ready to buy, as you would with your lead gen, but you've actually done the right thing and it's still brought you returns now.
Yeah, and we've seen that with clients, but we've also seen it from sort of the market stats. LinkedIn has this chart that I use nearly in every presentation that shows the impact of a sales activation campaign and then the impact over time of a brand campaign. And the brand campaign goes up, it compounds the benefits or the return, where the sales activation type campaign is in the moment. So it only lasts for how long that campaign lasts. When it goes, dead. So it's looking at that. And we've also seen from clients where we've insisted on doing a brand building campaign before we've gone into the sales activation campaign. The results we get are 2, 3, 4-fold increase from what we would expect on just doing a standalone campaign.
Yeah, and it's obvious when we sort of lay it out and we have the data to show future clients what that looks like, right? But it's trying to justify budget for something that it's risky because you can't say we're going to do this and it's going to generate this.
Yeah.
But with lead gen, you can predict it's probably going to get this many leads. You can do it on this channel and you're going to get this back from it. You get this many new contacts in your automation platform. That's kind of what clients want.
Yeah.
And actually, it's so difficult for us, isn't it, to turn around and be like, no, this is what you actually need.
Yeah.
Stop telling me you want that. This is what you will do for you and it will return better results.
Yeah, and what you've just been saying there is it's not as long-term investment as you think it is because you start getting some results quicker. It's not 6 months, 12 months. You can do something in 2, 3 months, but it's the longer tail of the benefits you get. So it goes on. And if you keep going with it, obviously it keeps going. But that brand value you build up will last a lot longer than your short-termism sort of campaign.
Yeah, and the graph you referenced is originally from the long and the short of it, which I think was 2012 when it came out, which was Les Burnett and Peter Field. And Peter Field has done other variations of the research since. And one of them is wear out. So you mentioned there that long-termism of that same tactic, right? So you're doing it now. With a sales activation campaign, you get up to about 30 days on brand building, but actually anything past 30 days, brand building has years of wear out, right? And that's the difference for me, is the more we do brand building and the more we compound those results, we end up with just effectively exponential results. The more mental availability you build with the right market, over time, those results are still coming in. But no one remembers a sales activation campaign. After a month, it's gone.
True. And brand building doesn't just have to be high level and fluffy, right? It can reference products and solutions and, as you said, category entry points. So it's not just 100% name awareness. It's name awareness and association with something that you probably have a need to.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key point. And I think that's where a lot of marketers get brand building wrong, is they look at brand building as awareness.
Yeah.
Brand awareness and brand building are not interchangeable terms, totally different. Brand awareness is putting your brand, your logo out in front of people. Right? That's it. There's nothing else. It's just getting in front of someone and making them aware of you. Brand building is doing the same, but to associate that brand and that message with a category entry point or a buying moment. So we talk about distinctive assets with our clients. They've got to have brand elements that are recognizable, and what you want to do over time is associate those with the moments when buyers would go into the market, right? So let's say we're dealing with a cybersecurity client, which we do quite often. The cybersecurity client, maybe a lucrative category entry point for them is post-breach, because we know that's a big moment where a lot of people, interestingly, a lot of people buy cybersecurity services after they've had a cyber breach because they go, probably need to do something about this after. That buying moment of, I've just had a breach, well, what do people do in that moment? Probably go to Google and they search what to do, I've just been hacked, or like what to do, I've just had a breach. Imagine as a cybersecurity services company, you own that category entry point. All you do is, ahead of that, to your total addressable market, you're messaging them, I don't know, I've got to think of some messaging off the top of my head here, but something like, when you've been hacked, we'll pick up the flak or something. And at that moment, when they go to Google, you've got some physical availability that says something like, if you've just been hacked, give us a call, we'll help you resolve it, but don't do anything salesy, just help them resolve it. And then during that process, you can say, well, look, we do offer ongoing cybersecurity services. So once we've resolved this for you as a little project, why don't you cover yourself moving forward? And that is an opportunity to associate your brand with the right moment and get in the right place. So it's not just that mental availability ahead, but it's also physical availability. That builds your brand in the right way, associates it with the right thing in the right moment.
So you look, thinking of cars now, look at We Buy Any Car, right? Probably less than 5% of people are selling their cars at any moment in time, but they're advertising to everybody, and you've got that. So when it comes to that point, it's them who you think about. AA is another great example, right? It's probably another case of, when you break down, then you think, should have been with the AA or other motoring organisations. But it's that sort of stuff that we're trying to say, that if we are making people aware that A, we're here, B, we can do this for you, that when those moments come, subconsciously or consciously, they're thinking of our brand.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, look, we can all have aspirations for our brands. Like the Cremarc brand, we're aspiring to be remembered by every B2B tech marketer at the moment where they need to reignite their marketing. Like that's when we want us to come to mind for them. But we all have aspirations, like Specsavers is my favourite one, because that's become part of vocabulary in that we've had a lights out. What's happened?
We're back online.
We're back online. What's happened here? I was talking about Specsavers and we went dark. What are the chances? So, yeah, Specsavers is one of my favourite examples because it's become part of vocabulary in the UK. You bang into a table or something, or you stub your toe and someone says, should have gone to Specsavers, because that moment where you see something or you don't see something, that's when Specsavers comes to mind. I mean, that is the best brand building I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's also stuff like Google and Uber that have become verbs. Like I'm going to go and Google it. Even if you're on Bing, you're still saying I'm Googling it.
Yeah.
You know, even if you finish a night out and you're like, I need to book an Uber, there's loads of other options. There's Lyft. There's probably others I can't name, can't remember, but Uber's the one that comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
And it has the right association, and that's what we want to aim for.
Yeah.
You don't have to. How many people after a night out go on Google and they're searching, taxi company here? No, you just book an Uber.
Yeah.
You don't. There's no. It's not about digital marketing getting there. Then they've done all the work ahead, and that's probably why that example I gave earlier. $35 million a year just on Meta ads they've saved.
Yeah.
They can reinvest that in other places.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to a point we touched on before of why is brand building so important, so critical in B2B today?
There's a variety of reasons. I think one of them being larger buying committees. We spoke about that internal sell idea before, about how it would be easier for me to sell HubSpot internally than it would to sell a random thing.
Yep.
Right? I can't advocate for something that you haven't heard of. It's always harder to, and I don't want to risk my job for it. With those larger buying committees, the average being 6.4 people per decision, I believe the latest data from Dream Data. That effectively means you've got to get 6 and a bit people on board with a decision. It's much easier to do that if everyone knows the brand, right? If everyone's sitting around a table and going, right, we need to make this decision. What are we using? What are we going for? It's much easier for someone to go, well, look, we should just go for HubSpot. It costs the same as that one, or it costs 100 quid extra a month. Let's go for that, because everyone's heard of it, and everyone else will go, yeah, I'm not going to, say no to that. Let's go for that. It's an easy option. It's a default. We'll go for it. It'll be safe. Nothing's going to go wrong. And I think having larger buying committees in every B2B decision now, think about anything our clients sell, managed service providers selling a managed service. We've got like some factory machinery clients, right? These are big decisions. They cost a lot of money. It's not going to be one person going, yeah, that's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah. So you got to get that awareness of a wider audience, and also you've got to get to that, I don't want to say if it's the highest or lowest common denominator of building the trust across all of those different people, all those that complete audience.
Yeah, and you spoke about it in your episode, the first one, where it's really dangerous when people go, I want to speak to C-suite, and they ignore everyone else in the organization, because the other people are probably the ones who make the business case and take it to C-suite. Right, great, C-suite might have heard of you, but those other people aren't taking anything to them because they've never heard of you. So if you focus on, oh no, I just want to target the CTO, you've probably already failed.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about the need to have an established brand to get into that 80% that's going into the buying cycle. We talked about having a brand that's appealing to a wider audience. So when you're brought to the table, the decision-making committee knows of you and you become that, I would say safe option, but the option that people are aware of, right? So it's easier to sell. So how do you start? We've said this is important, this is key. How do you start?
It's a great question. The first step is understanding your buyers and understanding the market. You can't make any decisions on the right category entry points that you want to target or the right associations you need to make until you understand the mindset of the buyer, right? So unless you know the buyers to enough depth that you know who they are, what decisions they make, when they make those decisions, why they make those decisions, who else has an impact on those decisions, you can't make any of those decisions yourself. So to start brand building, understand your buyer. the cybersecurity example I gave earlier, we understand cybersecurity buyers. We've done it for clients before. We know that one of the the big category entry points for that market is I've just been hacked. I've just had a breach. I need to sort this out now, moving forward. So it's kind of a post-disaster decision. So that is understanding the buyer. So we can make that decision on that's the moment that we need to focus on. That's the moment we need to target. And therefore, everything falls from there. So what advertising and distinctive assets do we need to be doing to make sure we associate our brand with that moment?
And that's a really good point as well, because we often find when we talk to clients, they love talking about themselves, right? Not in a vain way, but they love talking about their products and everything else. But the bit to remember is you are not the buyer. And a podcast I heard recently, obviously not as good as this one, but it was talking about somebody in a marketing agency. They put that Post-it note on everyone's desk that says, we are not the buyer, because they had a team of 20, 30 somethings coming up with these creative campaigns for a new car. And the average age of somebody buying a new car, 60 plus. So you've got to get into the mindset. And that's what organizations terribly get wrong. They're so keen about talking about the feeds, the speeds, the capabilities of their solution, how clever we are, that they forget to put across what are the things that the buyer sees as valuable.
Yeah. And how many times do we hear clients go, well, I don't use Instagram. Okay, brilliant. Right. But your buyers do. Doesn't matter if you don't use Instagram. You're a salesperson for a tech company. We're not selling to salespeople for tech companies. We're selling to IT managers, in-house IT managers, right? It's totally different. So that has to always be at the back of our minds. We're not selling to ourselves. We're selling to our buyers. Okay,
so we started by understanding the buyer, understanding the audience. And then what do we do? Is it creativity? Is it clever words? How do we build that brand? What's the difference between them? We mentioned it a little bit before, brand recognition or brand awareness or brand trust. How do we build all of those things together?
So you can only really build your brand strategy once you know what category entry points you want to target. So that's going to be the focus of your entire messaging, your entire positioning. So for example, Cremarc, right? Let's take ourselves as an example. Our target category entry point is those people who aren't getting the results, but they've just, there's been a big shake up, whether it is team changeover, big sort of staff swap, department shifting, they've come into some new budget and they've gone, right, we need to really sort stuff out now. That's kind of the moments we're targeting. So we focus all our messaging around, right, we're that partner that you go to at that moment in time. You can't have more than 3 category entry points unless you're a massive, massive company. You've already nailed some and you can start expanding out. You can only really have a couple because everything you do has got to focus around this. So to start building brand trust, well, you've got to be building trust in the right way, associating at the right moments. So when we talk about thought leadership for clients, it's always focused around the thing that associates them with the right moment.
Yeah, and you see that a lot. I can name a few brand names that I know the name, but I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that's got it wrong. So it's not just about, I don't know, putting your name on a football shirt or something like that. It's actually, as you say, doing that association. So then the recall, when it is that moment in time, the recall is you. And when you come up in that Google search, it's you they go to because they instantly associate you with what they're looking for.
Exactly. The whole objective of all marketing, there's probably three objectives that all marketers should strive for. Mental availability at category entry points, physical availability at category entry points, and pricing power, or sort of reducing pricing sensitivity for your buyers.
Yeah.
Those are the only 3 objectives we need to focus on. And that being top of mind is huge, right? And brand building can do the top of mind bit, but it also informs your brand strategy for the physical availability. So that's when we talk about SEO, paid search, being available in the right moments.
So we've talked about knowing your audience. We've talked about linking that audience with category entry points so we can then put our brand into context. Now it's really about executing, right? Getting that brand out there, building that trust, building that engagement. So what can we learn from the masters, the B2C world, some of the big brands in the technology world?
there's so many great use cases for consistency, and I think that's really one of the powerful parts of execution, is simply being consistent. So that can mean consistency in multiple different things. Consistency of the tactics you use, consistency of your messaging, consistency of your distinctive brand assets. Are you using the same assets over and over again? Are you making something that's memorable and attention grabbing? Right? Consistency can be lost if you're jumping around with different tactics and making a new campaign every month. And that's unfortunately where a lot of B2B marketers are.
I was just going to say that, because in the world of marketing, we love creating things new, right? Yeah. We love to change things. It's like, I get bored with something once I've done it. It's like, move on. But time and time again, we've seen those, especially in the B2C world, those brands that have really stuck with account. Coca-Cola. Christmas advert.
Same ad for my lifetime, 25 years. Same ad, yeah.
And the other one that, again, I heard a podcast on was Yorkshire Tea, right? They have gone in such a solid, stable, I think it's a declining market. They've gone and taken market share. And the Kaiser Chief ad, you think of that as last year, the year before, something like 10 years old.
But they ran that same ad for 3 years.
Wow. It's amazing.
You've got B2B marketers doing a new campaign on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they ran the same ad for 3 years.
So it's not a case of you need to do this for a long, long time to get results. What we're saying is you can get results quite quickly, but the longer you stick with it and the more, I wouldn't say repetition, because that's often seen as a negative word, but it's almost familiarity breeds loyalty and greater awareness. Is that right?
Yeah. I think that familiarity, you're right, repetition is probably the wrong word to use, because a creative theme doesn't have to be the same thing. So Specsavers, great example, the message and the creative idea is the same. Right. It's always something where someone's done something wrong and it would have been obvious if they were paying attention and looking properly, and the message and the slogan is should have gone to Specsavers.
Yep.
That's a different advert every time. It's a different creative idea, but based on that one overarching creative idea.
Yeah.
And so there is an opportunity to take one thing that's right and that's consistent and churn out things all relating and sort of pointing and directing to that overarching theme.
So if I'm an IT company, I don't know, and I do data centers or servers or compute, etc., and what my category entry points is, I'm looking for somebody who needs more performance, needs whatever. So if I then build my brand around performance and speed and everything else, then I'm linking the two things together.
Yeah,
it's probably a bad example.
No, but it's a really good point, because if you're focusing then on speed and performance, you could do different athletes. Like that could be, you could be working with different influencers in the athletics and sports and gym space.
Yeah.
Right, and it's all about speed and performance. It's still the overarching creative idea, but the creative you make can be different. So there's some really great use cases. You mentioned the Coca-Cola one. Another B2C example, Audi, Kevin the Carrot. So they've used Kevin the Carrot, and they probably get this wrong, but I think it's 7 years or something in a row. It might be a little bit less, might be 5 years. The adverts are different, but they all include the distinctive asset of Kevin the Carrot and some sort of surrounding characters. Now they've built it out a bit.
Yeah.
The consistency is not using the same advert. You don't have to use the same creative, but using the same elements, it makes it more recognizable. So when you spoke to Mary, there was a lot of chat about attention on paid media. Sometimes you've got less than 2 seconds, less than 1 second to grab someone's attention. What's the easiest way to do that? Well, it's if they recognize what you're showing them, right?
Yeah, it's that familiarity.
If it's an asset that they've seen before, they stop. That's why I think people, so there's some data on this from System 1 that celebrities in adverts don't actually make any difference to the advert. They've tested them side by side, right? But what celebrities do is they're a recognizable face.
Yeah.
So, or maybe a brand association, you want to be associated, like I mentioned, the athletes for speed and performance. But that moment of, I know what that is, stops someone. A distinctive asset could do the same.
Yeah.
Right. Kevin the Carrot does the same.
So what we're saying is that there's this lack of attention on brand building in the marketplace. And I personally feel, and I know you do as well, because we've talked about this, is that it's probably digital marketing. The thing that we love has actually killed brand building. We're so focused on all of the capabilities we've got to do ads and drill down and segment and A/B tests and everything else, that we lose sight of almost putting our head up, stepping back and going, right, what are we trying to do? Going back, audience, brand awareness, associating our values, our purpose with the category entry points. We're not doing that because we're so in the weeds with all this digital capability we've done that we absolutely and utterly forget what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, digital marketing has given us access to more tools than we've ever had before in the sector, right? Slightly before my time, but we used to do this with just a magazine ad, a TV ad, but there was a time before that and a slot in the newspaper, right? Before that, brands were built. So how did they do it without, a thread strategy or being on Blue Sky or, one of these modern tactics, making sure that their ChatGPT search results were better, right? This all didn't exist. So digital marketing has given us this focus on tactics and algorithms, and we've forgotten the buyer. So brand building has plummeted because that's reliant on understanding the buyer, and we're now marketing to algorithms, right? If we look at Meta ads, LinkedIn ads, they all of the paid social and paid media platforms, they say you need between 15, 20 variations of your ad every time you put something out. Well, how can you be consistent if you're trying to A/B test everything? Your messaging has changed. You've got to do copy variations. Same with email marketing, right? HubSpot say you've got to do 2 emails a week to break an audience. You've got to send 10 emails before someone even engages with you. Well, why are you doing it at all then? Because you've got to say 10 things to be able to even get in front of someone.
Yeah.
Well, by that point, you've churned out a bunch of content to them for the sake of churning out content for them. So this whole over obsession with, I think we've called them magpie marketers before in blogs, and this obsession with a new shiny tactic, you forget the buyer.
Yeah. I suppose what we're doing is exactly what you've just said there, is we're drilling so much down in the technical detail and almost spinning our wheels on digital marketing. We've forgotten the one thing that makes it easier and more effective in digital marketing, which is starting from a position of power with a recognized brand and trust with your audience.
Yeah, and it's actually made digital marketing less effective as well, right? Digital marketing, we're now in a state where loads of digital marketing is wasted. It's ignored, it's misremembered. Only 16%, according to the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, only 16% of digital advertising is remembered and attributed to the right brand. So effectively, we're saying 84% is just wasted. That's just in the ether. I mean, I don't want to know what the numbers are in terms of like the financials of that, but a lot of budgets have been wasted because people have been churning stuff out, and it's not right. It's not the right messaging. It's not the right distinctive assets. It's not the right campaign content. It's new stuff that's just for the sake of putting out more stuff.
So let's finish with one last question, and quite a direct question. If I was sat here as a marketing manager or head of marketing or even the CEO of a company, what one bit of advice would you give me about how I change marketing or the marketing that I'm doing to be more effective?
Go back to basics. Pause all the thousands of digital marketing channels and activities you're doing and actually go back to the start, the buyer. What does the buyer actually want? What is the buyer actually doing? What does the buyer need? And start there and work backwards. Develop your tactics around that. Develop the category entry points. Develop the right associations for your brand and start again. Don't jump around with, oh, now we need to jump on this social platform. Now we need to, we need to make sure we've got 3 emails to this segment going out every week. It's just crazy. And I think so much inefficiency and chaos has been caused by digital marketing that we've forgotten about these foundations. So unfortunately, the answer is probably get the foundations in place.
Yeah, and to put that another way, it's almost a case of rather than fixating on how you make your digital marketing better, take a step back and say, what else can you do that's going to have a bigger impact on that? So we often say to people, take part of your digital marketing spend and divert that and put it into brand spend. You're being more radical there, and I totally agree with that, is why keep throwing money at something that is generating you a low amount of return, when if you took a step before that and built that brand, built that trust, you're going to get not only greater returns on those campaigns, but a longer term return on those campaigns.
Yeah, you'll get slower wear out. You'll build more pricing sensitivity. So there's data from System 1 that puts aside sales value gain and profit gain. And with brand building versus sales activation campaigns, brand building has higher on both, yet the same sales volume. So I haven't explained that too well, but what that essentially means is the market pay more for brands that they know. So if you do brand building, your market has less pricing sensitivity. So you could charge more, get more profit gain for the same product just by being a known brand. So there's all these things that if we shift our focus to the right things, not leads, we shift our focus to revenue.
Totally. I think marketers are always guilty of having this pendulum. We do one thing or the other and we switch, and it's, oh, this is fashionable. Now this is fashionable. And it's not. It's that consistency and making sure that you've got those foundation blocks in place. So I think this is a topic we could actually talk about for hours and hours, but we got to close it there. I'm sure there's a few more podcasts in there that we can go back and revisit. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure you're going to be back very, very soon. And for anybody who's listening, looking for inspiration, any questions you've got, any topics you'd love for us to cover on this podcast, then please either comment against the podcast or send us an email at podcast@cremarc.com. Thank you for listening.